In the American South, during the early 1900s, Pellagra killed more than 100,000 people, a disease so brutal it rotted skin, destroyed minds, and turned the poor into walking skeletons. This is the Rankin Prison Farm Experiment. 1915, Mississippi. Welcome back, my curious test subjects, to another journey into the darkest corners of medical history. Today we are talking about Dr. Joseph Goldberger, a scientist with a theory that pellagra was not an infectious disease, but a disease of malnutrition. The medical establishment disagreed. They thought it spread like cholera or typhoid. Goldberger needed proof, and to get that proof, he needed something very specific. He needed people willing to get sick on purpose. He needed controlled conditions. He needed time, and most importantly, he needed subjects who had something to gain and nothing left to lose. So he turned to the one place where desperate men could be found in abundance: prison. Specifically, the Rankin State Prison Farm in Mississippi, where 12 men, 7 of them convicted murderers, would agree to eat themselves into disease in exchange for one thing: freedom. So how exactly do you convince a group of convicted killers to volunteer for a medical experiment? Simple. You offer them the one thing they want most. By 1915, Mississippi was the state hit hardest by pellagra in the entire country. Thousands were dying every year. But here is the strange part. There were no reported cases of pellagra in any Mississippi prison. None. The prisoners seemed healthier than the poor people outside. Goldberger noticed this immediately. The prison diet was not great, but it included meat at every meal, buttermilk, peas, and beans. Better than what most poor Southerners were eating. This gave Goldberger an idea. If pellagra was caused by diet, he could prove it by taking healthy prisoners and feeding them the diet that was killing people outside the prison walls. In medical ethics terms, that means Goldberger needed human test subjects willing to get sick on purpose. He partnered with Earl Brewer, the governor of Mississippi, who had a very personal interest in the project. Together they made an offer to about 80 inmates at Rankin Farm. Volunteer to eat a restricted diet for 6 months. Risk developing pellagra. And in exchange, receive a full pardon. Think of it like a clinical trial, except the consent form was a pardon and nobody mentioned how bad it was actually going to get. 12 men accepted. 7 were convicted murderers serving life sentences. 2 were wealthy brothers doing time for embezzlement after their bank collapsed. They were friends of the governor. Freedom in exchange for malnutrition, completely reasonable trade. The deal was simple. Eat what we tell you. Get sick if it happens. Walk free when it is over. 12 men, 7 murderers, 2 embezzlers, full pardons on the table. Now you might be wondering what a diet terrible enough to cause disease actually looks like. Let me paint you a picture. In April 1915, the 12 volunteers were moved into a separate building, isolated from the general prison population. The building was scrupulously clean. The conditions were controlled, and the menu was locked in. Breakfast every single morning. Biscuits, fried mush, grits, brown gravy, cane syrup, and coffee. Lunch, cornbread, collards, sweet potatoes, grits, and syrup. Supper, basically the same as lunch. That was it, every single day. For 6 months, no meat, no fresh milk, no vegetables with any real nutritional value. Just carbs, grease, and sugar on repeat. Imagine eating the exact same carb-heavy meal 3 times a day for 6 months straight. No protein, no variety, no relief. Now here is the truly dark part. The regular Rankin prison diet, the one every other inmate was eating, was significantly better. It included meat at all 3 meals, buttermilk, peas, beans, real nutrition, but the experiment subjects were not allowed any of that. They were eating worse than convicted criminals. Spoiler, they started hating it almost immediately. In medical ethics terms, that means the prisoners were eating what millions of poor Southerners ate every single day. This was not some invented torture diet. This was standard fare for people living in poverty across the South. And it was killing them. The prisoners started complaining within days. Week 1, complaints. Week 2, illness and weakness setting in. They felt tired, sick, drained. But the experiment had to continue, because Goldberger needed time. Time for the disease to take hold. Time for the proof to show itself in human flesh. So what actually happened to these 12 men who traded their health for freedom? By the 5th month, September 1915, the effects were undeniable. 6 of the 12 volunteers had developed dermatitis, skin lesions, and a range of vague symptoms that physicians recognized immediately. Other doctors were brought in to confirm what Goldberger already knew. 5 of the 6 cases were officially diagnosed as pellagra. The experiment had worked. Goldberger had induced a deadly disease in otherwise healthy men simply by controlling what they ate. Or more accurately, by controlling what they did not eat. No meat, no fresh milk, no vegetables. Just the diet of poverty served 3 times a day under clinical observation. Results were exactly as predicted, which is great for science, less great for the prisoners. In medical ethics terms, that means the experiment was a complete success. Goldberger had proven beyond doubt that pellagra was not infectious. It was nutritional, it was a disease of deficiency, and, critically, it was a disease of poverty. The people dying by the thousands across the South were not being infected by germs. They were being starved by an economic system that left them with nothing but cornbread and syrup. 5 men now had a disease that could kill them, all to prove what Goldberger already suspected. But here is the complicated part. The prisoners did get their pardons. All 12 of them walked free as promised. Subject count, 12. Pellagra cases, 5 confirmed, 1 additional probable. Pardons granted, all 12. They had fulfilled their end of the bargain. They had eaten the food. They had gotten sick. And now they were free to leave, free to deal with a disease that could destroy their skin, their digestion, their minds, and eventually kill them. But hey, at least they were no longer in prison. And that is how you prove a disease comes from poverty, by making prisoners sick enough to confirm it, then setting them free to deal with the consequences. Science. Goldberger's experiment at Rankin Farm was considered a triumph. It definitively established the nutritional basis of pellagra and eventually led to public health interventions that saved countless lives. Niacin deficiency was identified as the cause. Dietary recommendations changed. Pellagra was essentially eradicated in the United States within a few decades. All of that is true, but it is also true that 12 men, 7 of them murderers, yes, but still human beings, were used as test subjects in an experiment designed to make them sick. They consented, sure, but their consent was bought with the promise of freedom. And the disease they received in exchange stayed with them long after the prison doors opened. So the next time someone tells you science is objective and pure, remember the prisoners at Rankin Farm who ate their way to freedom, one terrible meal at a time. If this story disturbed you as much as it should have, leave a comment, subscribe, and let me know which unethical experiment I should cover next.